Howdy. How's it going, Kari Warrior? Weren't you on the medieval stream earlier today? Yeah, those guys are pretty good. We're trying to stream a bit more just in general for the studio. We like to do it. It's just that we're generally pretty busy and don't have a lot of time. But now I'm trying to stream at lunchtimes Tuesday and Thursday, and then we have someone else who streams on Fridays. And today was medieval, so I'm just trying to clean my desk a little bit. Oculus stuff. I don't know. Like, my general thing is I will stream games during the lunchtimes, the Tuesdays and Thursdays. I try to stream games that I haven't really played before, and oftentimes they are games that were only released in Japan or maybe Japan and Europe. And then if they're not available in English, I do like a translation patch and then play it that way in English. And that way I kind of go in not knowing what to expect. And it can be a little bit exciting that way. But that's me on Tuesdays and Thursdays, older games. Fridays, they tend to do more modern stuff. I mean, medieval was an exception today, but they tend to do more current console stuff. But since there's a different person each week, generally, it just really varies on them. Pick this up at a Salvation Army store, I think. Demo pack for PlayStation. I collect a lot of the old games, whenever there's a good deal. So I always dig these demo discs that have like a myriad of different games on them. This one sold for only $5 back in the day. Hey, Shroomy32X, how you doing, buddy? How is your Friday going? Oh, the PSM DVDs? Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, I pulled out a bunch of, I have a bunch of loose PSM DVDs, and I organized them somewhere, but I might have put them away in storage because I only have so much room in this room to put stuff, and PSM is so old school that I kind of file that away. But thanks for supporting PSM. Actually, if you remember Bill Donahue, who was our managing editor, I came across him when I went up to Oregon for the Retro Gaming Expo. He's here locally in California, not that far away, but he works for, I can't remember the magazine, Old School Gamer or something like that. Let me see. Hold on a second. Yeah, Old School Gamer. And he writes, he's pretty much retired. I think he does music and stuff, but he writes some articles for Old School Gamer from time to time. So it was really weird because I've talked to him on Twitter and stuff, but I kind of walked into the expo center in Portland, and he was just kind of there at one of the stands. I was like, whoa, that's kind of surreal. Oh, for me, subs. Is you know why? Because I'm kind of inconsistent and I'm all over the place. And um, there was a time when I left Sega and before I started working again on video games, I took like a year off just to relax because I was working a lot on Sonic the Hedgehog stuff, and that was really stressful. And I just wanted to take some time to relax and chill. Um, and and that's when I started thinking about doing video content and things like that. But I don't know, I don't do it consistently enough, and I think the key thing to get people following your subscribers is just to do it somewhat consistently, I guess. And I am very sporadic and inconsistent and whatever. Yeah, I worked at Sega for like 8 years or 9 years, all the way until they moved down to Southern California. So I was there for quite a while. It was after the Dreamcast stuff, so they had already become a third-party publisher, and I came on and did a mixture of stuff. I did a lot of the Marvel games, and I did a lot of Sonic games. Yeah. Sega. That was most of my career. I mean, I've been at Electronic Arts, I've been at Activision, been at Sega, and now I'm at Other Ocean / Digital Eclipse. So, yep, eclectic career. It was fun. Like, I've had a lot of fun doing a variety of games. So I can't complain too much. I really got to clean this space. You guys got any hot plans for the weekend? Oh, yeah. So actually, before I started at PSM, because I went to university in Oregon, and across the street from the university was a studio called Dynamics, which is run by or owned by Sierra Online, the King's Quest people. Sierra is up in Washington, but Dynamics was in Oregon. And that was actually my first job. So during college, I worked at Dynamics doing QA and kind of did some design work and things like that. And that's where actually my video game career kind of started. No, Dynamics with an X at the end instead of CS. Not Crystal Dynamics. It's actually they're old school PC development. They did Tribes and some other PC games, but during that time it was pretty much PC development. And but there weren't there. I love that, and I loved working in games, but there weren't very many places to work in video games in Oregon. There was Trilobite, which did Seventh Guest and 11th Hour, those PC games, and there was another small studio, but nothing really there. So I knew I had to leave, either go to California or Texas. Ended up in California and just started writing about games just to get here in California. But knowing that I wanted to get back in development, I just didn't expect to be at PSM for so many years. Though Crystal Dynamics, I have always wanted to work at Crystal Dynamics. I have interviewed there a couple times throughout my career early on, and it's a tough place to get into for sure. But I've always wanted to work on Tomb Raider. I've been a big fan of Tomb Raider, so would have loved to work on that. And I've gotten close, but it just never worked out. Let's see. Oh, the Legend stuff? Yeah, those are great. Those are great. I mean, There are not many Tomb Raider games that I don't like. I mean, Angel of Darkness, I wasn't a big fan of, but the Legend stuff specifically was awesome for sure. And of course, the modern couple were really good as well. Though I start to get like, I don't know, like I like my games kind of structured and story driven, but a little bit more linear. I mean, I like sort of the aspects of open world, but I almost felt like Tomb Raider has gotten a little bit too open world and a lot of optional stuff that I'm not interested in. And I wish that they would rein it in a little bit and kind of make it a little bit more linear experience. I mean, you can still be able to explore and stuff like that, but I think it's starting to expand, like, because a lot of people like open world stuff, but I just feel open world stuff ends up, there's so much stuff that you don't end up doing, and it's kind of wasted on me. And I'd prefer like this experience where this is the experience that we want you to have. Go do it, enjoy the story, and then move on to the next game. Hey, Alan. Yep, we were just talking about PSM a little bit. Thanks for reading the magazine. I appreciate it. That was definitely some fun times. I really enjoyed working for the magazine, mainly because it's literally just half a dozen guys who really love games hanging out and talking about games. It was a blast. Oh yeah, I mean, it could be blasphemy, but I like Jammer Lammy over Parappa. I always dig her. Actually, there's a lot of figures over here on this side that is off camera, but yeah, they had a chance with Parappa with the last one, but I think they kind of blew it. Parappa was definitely a product of its time, and oh man, I was at PSM when the first Parappa came out, and I remember everyone huddled together. There are only a few key moments I remember during the PSM days where everyone was like riveted, and one of them was Parappa when that was brought. Resident Evil 2 was another one that was like a pivotal, like everyone in the company kind of gathered when Capcom and came and showed us like Resident Evil 2. But Parappa was definitely one of those games that everyone took turns playing throughout the whole company. Next Gen Magazine, PC Gamer, like everyone was playing Parappa. But I think they kind of dropped the ball with the last Parappa. I don't know. It just didn't really have the spirit, I think, of the earlier game. And I don't know. Like, I think it's tough to make a game like that now. That's a little bit quirky. I mean, there's lots of quirky games, but that one, I don't know. I think it's just a product of its time. I'm not sure. Could you make a Parappa game now that would succeed? Yeah, Parappa 2, Ikari Warrior. I think we need a new Jammer Lammy game. That'll be the greatest crossover. It's Street Fighter X Jammer Lammy. Are you guys more into kind of modern gaming, or are you into retro games too, or collecting retro systems or anything? I mean, in spirit, I guess Jammer Lammy is a spiritual successor to the original Parappa, but I just think that the music and how it plays and everything like that is better. Yeah, I mean, it's the same group and the same, art group and Nana Ansha. So they're for sure like related. It's all the same universe, like you're saying, for sure. But I think there's a certain number of people who know Parappa the Rapper, and I think far less who know Jammer Lammy. Oh, that's cool. Genesis fan, Ikari Warrior. Yeah, I love the Genesis too. Lots of good games on the Genesis for sure. Yeah, Sega's an interesting bit. Like, I tried to bring back a lot of stuff. Like, I did get a chance to do a Shinobi game on the 3DS, and but it's really tough to revive those old franchises. A lot of Sega's no different from any other publisher, and they like to play it safe. And they have their key marquee franchises, and they rely on those. And it's harder to dip deeper into that pool. They aren't as sure about it, and it's hard to say if the generations of people who know those franchises would be willing, or there's enough of them who are willing to buy the Sega properties. I don't know. I mean, I understand your point about Sega and Konami, but I think Sega releases far more games. Konami has kind of really turned and become almost like a mobile company. I mean, they have soccer, they have Yu-Gi-Oh! They release Contra every so often. They release their collections like Castlevania. But when are you going to see a new Castlevania game? When are you going to see a new Metal Gear, if ever? So they have a lot of franchises. Will there ever be a new Silent Hill game? They have a lot of franchises as well, like Sega, that they don't utilize, but they're perfectly happy, I think, with the mobile stuff and also their arcade presence. Yeah, Nightshade is great. I think Nightshade / Kunoichi, right? Is one of those titles where, because it doesn't bear kind of that traditional Shinobi name, it got lost in the shuffle. But I agree with you. I enjoyed that game quite a bit. Yeah, I worked on the 3DS Shinobi title actually with Chris Derschmidt, who ironically, he works with my studio as well. He's one of the other teams, and he's working with his team with some of the other people who worked on Shinobi. They're actually working on the Samurai Showdown collection for us and SNK, of course. PS3 and 360 retro? I guess so. I mean, it's only one generation behind, so I don't necessarily consider that retro. PS2 though is starting to be that way. PS1 for sure. Obviously, if Sony's doing a mini console for it, it's starting to become retro a bit. Yeah, I mean, a decade's a long time, right? But these console systems now last 7 or 8 years, if not 10 years, depending on how long they linger around after the transition. Yeah, I think it would be smart for Sony to have backwards compatibility, and I think they'll certainly attempt it. I don't see a reason why. I mean, I think you have a taste of that with the emulators, that they released for the PS4 when they've released some of the older games on the PS4. Yeah, if they could nail PS3 emulation for sure. I mean, unless they're trying to put same chip in there, but PS3 emulation for sure is a little bit tricky. But how amazing would that be if PS5 played PS1, PS2, PS3, and PS4 games? I mean, that would be crazy. And they kind of have to do it. I mean, Microsoft has done a very good job of backwards compatibility, and they've been building up their library. I mean, a lot of people, since predominantly most people play the PlayStation now, it kind of goes unknown. But the sheer number of titles that are backwards compatible on the Xbox One is pretty impressive, and they continue to do that. So. Oh yeah, PS1 and Saturn. Saturn, I love. Saturn is one of my favorite consoles. I play it a lot. I mean, I have 7 different Saturns, including a development kit. I love it. I love that platform. It had a special place. I mean, it was one of those, the transition when you could actually get arcade games that looked pretty decent and were somewhat accurate to the arcades. And, it killed at the 2D fighting games. That was the era when I was big on fighting games. So it killed with 2D fighting games. And then, of course, Virtua Fighter, which I'm a huge Virtua Fighter fan. You guys can't see it, but over there is actually a Virtua Fighter 2 arcade cabinet. And so I'm a big Virtua Fighter fan. So you have 3D fighting games from Sega, and then you've got all the Capcom 2D fighting games. And so for a fighting game fan, like that system was awesome. And I still use it and I still play it. I mean, it's definitely one of my most played systems. I mean, I have a lot of them hooked up, but it's definitely one of my faves. The white one is my sort of one of my all-time fave console designs. That Sonic Boom poster is actually for Rise of Lyric, the Wii U one. Though the marketing materials are very, very close to each, how they looked as far as the focus on the teamwork. Here's something I'll share with you. So, I'm a huge Virtua Fighter fan. So while I was at Sega, I spent a lot of time trying to think about how can that franchise, be revived again? Because there's no doubt it has a very loyal following, but it's too complex almost. So the problems with Virtua Fighter is that it's too complex to minutia, right? To a frame count sort of situation. And a lot of fighting games are like that. But it also doesn't have the flair and excitement. It doesn't have the explosions and kind of cool sort of environments that Tekken has. It doesn't have the dramatic flair of Street Fighter and stuff. So, and certainly, you look at like games like Guilty Gear, especially the recent ones, Dragon Ball Z Fighters and stuff, and they're so exciting to watch, right? Fighting games now are geared towards like the excitement of watching them to some degree. And Virtua Fighter has never really had that, and it's gotten complex. So, it's not exciting to watch, and it's gotten super complex, and that's kind of problematic. So my idea, and let me know what you guys think about this. My idea was to simplify things. So basically take Virtua Fighter back to its roots. A little bit a la Virtua Fighter Kids, but basically they're teenagers. They've only been doing martial arts for, a certain number of years. Their movesets are limited. And then you developed the storylines for these characters when they're young and how they sort of interact and came together. You can it makes logical sense to reduce the moveset because they're younger. They're not as experienced in their martial arts career. They've got interesting personality types and attitudes, et cetera, that you can make a compelling story around. So I think we could have done something there by, making it a little bit more hip, making it a little bit more exciting, and making the kind of the environments a little bit more, less. I think you could play with the environments and do a lot of cool stuff with them. Oh, yeah. I mean, Sonic Boom stuff was, we were trying a bunch of different things. It was a different focus. It was a different team. So you learn from it and you kind of move on. But sure, there are a lot of things we could have done differently in hindsight. But I think you can say that about every game you work on. Well, I mean, anywhere you work, corporation, if it's a big company, is going to have a lot of influence on the games that you work on. And as a producer like myself, you fight against that all the time. I mean, there's always people who are going to be contributing ideas who aren't directly related to the project, who don't understand the project. And they're in positions of power or they're upper management. So development teams have to listen to them to some degree. So there's a lot of battle that goes along with that. It can cause problems. I mean, there's a reason why there's a lot of talks about why studio managers or studio heads should focus on the company and not the games, and let the people focus on the games who are just, who are hired to work on the games. But a lot of people who run studios or run businesses like that want to have some impact on the games. And that's fine. It's just that sometimes they don't understand where things are, what the situation is, and their advice can be a little bit challenging for teams to take and try to implement. Well, I don't think anyone's really a fan of corporate meddling. It's just a product environment. And actually, that's sort of why, after I left Sega, I wanted to work at a bit of a smaller studio. And I mean, Other Ocean Digital Eclipse is not super small. I mean, we have studios in Canada, here in Emeryville, in Washington. So it's a relatively decent sized company, but I'm able to work on small teams with different people. We have very small amount of upper management, like very, very small amount of upper management. So I get a lot of control and freedom over what I do and how I do it, as does the team. And it allows us to sort of make changes and adjustments on the fly much quicker. And also, there's no bureaucratic red tape. Like if something is better for the game or better for the consumer, we can do it. And the only reason why we couldn't is if like a publisher who hires us comes in and says specifically we can't do something. But generally, we have good reasons to do what we do, and they kind of go along with it. So I appreciate sort of the freedom and the power that we sort of have at our studio. Well, I mean, video games also are a business, right? And the whole point is to make money for the company, make money for the business. And so once you have a property that makes a lot of money, there are going to be a lot of people who want to be involved in that so that they can try to make an impact on it, right? Put their mark on it. That's just everyone, really. I haven't played Katamari in a while, actually. Yeah, I played the first couple. I played maybe two of them. And they're fine. They're totally cool. But it's not something that it's not like I would be on a Saturday and be like, hey, let's pop in a Katamari game and play that. Yeah, the reroll, that was the Switch, right? That was a Switch update, if I remember right. Hey, that's the best you can ask. Like if you make a sequel to a game and it sparks interest in the franchise and gets people to go back and look at the older games, then win-win, right? You've accomplished your mission. That's a high a thing that you could possibly accomplish, really. Yeah, that was a weird one. That there are a lot of sequels to Katamari, and you don't necessarily see that so quickly with Japanese IP. I mean, it used to be a point where like it took a long time before Japan came to realization that they need to make like sequels and somewhat frequently. Like I feel that's a very Western thing. Like, the Western methodology or thought process for making games is if you have a hit, then you need to strike while the iron's hot and make as many of those as quickly as you can until it's basically dead. And once that revenue and money is guaranteed, the business wants more and more and more of that. And Japan used to be this special place where that didn't happen. Like even key franchises that sold a lot, they'd be like 3 years apart, 4 years apart. So that was always something I respected of Japan. But now it seems like, money is money, and they've kind of come around, and now it's all about trying to make sequels as well, pretty frequently. Still not as frequently, I think, as the United States, but or Western, Europe as well. But trying to make sequels and stuff as quickly as they can. Was there a project, or were you involved in a team that you're working on a project and it was starting to go over budget and you had to drop it, but it seemed like everything was going well? Are you asking if I like had to drop features or something, or some aspect of the game because it went over budget? I mean, I'm trying to think if any of my games have gone over. Well, I wouldn't say traditionally any of them have gone over budget, but there have been a couple where I knew well in advance that we were going to need more money, and I requested more money and ended up getting, some more money. Oh, no. Like a canceled game or things like that, over budget. No, I'm fairly good with my budgets, and like I said, I think the only situations where there were times when I knew well in advance that we were going to need more money for legitimate good causes, and I had to go and present why I need that money, and then I ended up getting it. But yeah, I don't think any games I worked on canceled. I mean, there have been some that I kind of helped on, but I wasn't really managing. But I'm trying to think. No, I guess I've been lucky. I think every game that I've actually worked on and been a manager on or a co-manager on has been released. So I guess I can count my lucky stars for that. Good or bad, they've come out. Though it sucks. I mean, I know several people who've worked on projects that were canceled, and that is not fun. Especially you work hard on it, because games are not easy to make. And I say that a lot. I tweet that a lot too. But it's true. It's funny because sometimes I'll just be talking with people about games I've worked on, projects I've worked on, the challenges and stuff like that, and it really comes to boils up to your brain that like these things are hard to make, and it's amazing. It's sort of a little miracle whenever a game is actually done and released, because the sheer number of people oftentimes who work on it, the number of decisions, the challenges that come up that you have to overcome. No one wants to release a bad game. But oftentimes maybe the situation doesn't lend itself to releasing a really good game, and you just try your best and release what you can. Yeah, no real scrap. I mean, I've had some prototype stuff that we've experimented with and things like that over my career. Like you build like a little prototype or something, and sometimes those don't get picked up, or don't end up being good enough that people think that you can make a viable product out of it. But certainly not after a project's been greenlit. I haven't had anything knock on wood or fake wood. I haven't had a project that has been canceled. I wasn't part of this company when Foundation 9 was there. I mean, I worked with Foundation 9 when I was at Sega. My first project, which was Sega Genesis Collection, was working with Backbone and Foundation 9. And several of the major people who work at Foundation 9, I knew for when I worked at PSM, and they worked on other magazines. And actually, the company I work at now, Other Ocean, several of the people there are folks that I worked with. They were on different magazines, but I worked with on when I was doing PSM. They were doing Next Generation magazine and things like that. So yeah, Foundation 9 doesn't really exist anymore now, obviously, but one aspect of it, which is the Digital Eclipse name, we own that now. And so of course we do Digital Eclipse projects. And several of the people who worked in Foundation 9 are part of Other Ocean. Hold on one sec, guys. I'm gonna look at something real quick. I keep getting these notifications for these Black Friday deals. There's so much stuff. It's so much work to try to find good deals. I mean, there's a lot of good deals, but it's just so much work trying to go through them and find out what are actually good deals. Let's see. Oh, Sonic the Fighters. Yeah. Sonic the Fighters would have been kind of perfect for the Saturn, but maybe Virtua Fighter Kids didn't really resonate very well, and so they didn't think that Sonic the Fighters would do well. But it got released later, right? It got released on PlayStation 2 and other systems as a digital download. Yeah, Backbone was owned by Foundation 9, and members of Backbone now are at Other Ocean, and we have the Digital Eclipse name. So the upper management of the studio I work with were key members of Backbone and Foundation 9. Oh, sorry you have problems with the DualShock. I haven't had any problems with the DualShock, actually. I mean, I have a lot of DualShocks. I have like 5 or 6 DualShocks, and they get used a lot, and I haven't really had any problems. I have had problems with the Switch, though. Twice I've had problems with the Switch's analog sticks, and I sent one to Nintendo to get fixed. They sent it back. I connected it, and it still had the problem. So I don't know what was going on there. So I just gave up and got another pair. But the Switch is the first time in a long time that I've actually had like really noticeable problems with the analog sticks that impact things, where it's like, you know, moving on its own, or it's like continuously pressing down and things like that. Oh, gaming PC. Yeah, I've always been a console gamer. Like, I have a pretty powerful PC. I do, you know, VR. I have several VR kits, the Quest and the the Oculus Rift and the PlayStation VR and stuff like that. And I'll occasionally play games on PC, but I just prefer console gaming and a giant screen. You know, I just like to lay back on the sofa and play on a big screen. I mean, there's no doubt it's great when you've got a nice PC setup, you crank up the visuals, right, and you got a 120 hertz screen or whatever refresh, right? It's beautiful. You can have some amazing things, but I can take a little bit of that away, and I think just with a controller and just sitting on a sofa on a big TV is my de facto kind of perfect way to game. Well, it's cool talking to you guys. Thanks for swinging by. I didn't, I wasn't really expecting anyone to kind of show up, but, maybe I can do this on a regular basis and hang out and chat about stuff. I always like to, when I come across people who aren't in the industry, they always like to chat about the industry and ask about things. And I love talking about that stuff, but there's no easy way to do that. I can't do it like an AMA all the time. It doesn't really make any sense. So just having streams where we just chit chat and stuff like that seems like fun. So maybe I'll do that. Yeah, PCs are expensive. But nowadays it seems like PCs, your investments last longer as far as the amount of time. You used to get outdated a lot back in the day, but it seems like now if you spend a decent amount of money, you can get a PC that lasts for a fair bit. But I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, I don't have anything wrong with the console gaming. I do it on occasion, but I'm just too much of a console guy. Crazy Taxi. My first was it my first project? My second project at Sega was Crazy Taxi Fair Wars for the PSP, which in itself was a little challenging trying to get the arcade, the Naomi original arcade games to run on PSP, but we had to add in 2-player sort of online features, which is a tough thing to do for arcade games that aren't designed to have 2-player online features. If I could have one arcade cabinet, so there's a couple I'd like. I really like a Virtua Fighter 3 arcade cabinet, and I actually came across, I think a year ago, I came across one in New York. I'm in California, in New York, and it's the giant one. It's like a 50-inch screen, and it's the one where the controls are disconnected from the big screen, and it's like a couple of feet in front of the big screen. The thing weighs like a ton, and they the guy was selling it super cheap because he didn't want it. It was like $400 or something, right? Which is a steal for the a VF3 arcade cabinet with a 50-inch screen. The problem is the cost of shipping it. It literally weighs like over 1,000 pounds, and to ship that would have been, I don't know, $1,000 or $1,500 or something. So I didn't get it, but man, $400 for that thing. I would love to have that. I just don't know where I'd put it, right? Because once you place it down there, you're not moving it. It's too heavy. But I wouldn't mind that, and I would love some original Killer Instinct arcade cabinets, though the hard drives on those fail now, so you kind of have to do a mod to replace it, which is not a big deal. But I'd love to have original Killer Instinct arcade cabinets. I think that would be awesome. I love those games. Yeah, I hope someone in New York picked that up, though. Still, like, where do you put something that big? I mean, an arcade cabinet by itself is big, but something like that is, man, with a small apartment in New York. I guess a bar could have bought it or something, but oh, that's cool. I'm jealous of the Killer Instinct 2 cabinet. I had so many fond memories of playing Killer Instinct. When I grew up in Oregon, we used to have a lot of nickel arcades. I mean, California had some that were run by Namco. Namco used to have a bunch of like cheap arcades, but in Oregon we had a ton. We had a chain called Wonderland, and literally you went in and you paid a couple bucks for entrance fee, like $2.50 or something, and then all games were like a nickel or 2 nickels. So even new games. So one of the places would get new games all the time, and so I would go in and you could spend a day there playing Killer Instinct or New Street Fighter or Darkstalkers or whatever, and it wouldn't cost you much. 2 nickels a game. And so I learned a lot of my fighting game stuff there. You know, I'd go on the week, like a Saturday, and I'd spend all day there and, you know, only spend like, who knows, $10 or something. And I couldn't imagine. I mean, I had access to that. Even the university that I went to, the University of Oregon, they had for some reason, they had a really good arcade in the rec center. They had a really good arcade, and they would always get like a lot of the new games. And I'm not sure why. I don't know how that came to pass, but whenever like new Street Fighter sequels came out, Fighter's History, Mortal Kombat, when MK2 came out, it was one of the first places to get it. So I always end up sneaking out of classes and going and playing arcade games, which is probably not a good thing to do, but oh, that's great. Nice. Yeah, building an arcade cabinet is really cool. I mean, you know, they've got so many places selling like even like the bar top kits and stuff like that. It's cool to kind of see that whole thing blow up a little bit. I mean, part of it is because of the Arcade 1-Up stuff, which I have the Street Fighter one over there. We worked on a lot of the Arcade 1-Up games, and it's neat to see that kind of aftermarket pop up of mods and people, you know, improving them and replacing with stuff. And it's kind of neat to see that interest again in arcade cabinets, and, you know, at a more manageable price level, right? Because the problem with arcade cabinets, especially original ones, is just the prices are going up and up and up and up. And it's hard for regular people to kind of justify buying it. But, you know, $200 or $300 on a base cabinet and then just slowly adding to it or improving it is pretty cool. And just the idea of being able to build an arcade cabinet or finding one that's from another game and converting it is pretty neat. I've never had time for that. Like, I literally have Street Fighter and I have Virtua Fighter 2, and that's good enough for me. But kudos to you for Darkstalkers. That's a great game. I love me some Darkstalkers. I keep trying to pitch Capcom to let me do a updated Darkstalkers collection, but unfortunately, I don't think that franchise sells enough now to warrant doing a collection. So, but maybe in the future, it'd be great. I'm always hopeful that Capcom will do a new Darkstalkers, but I think that would blow people's minds because no one would expect it. Yeah, I mean, I think a certain number of people would definitely jump on a collection like that, but would there be enough? I don't know. Yeah, Resurrection was for sure. But I think, not to toot our own horn, but I think part of the selling point and why our collections do well is not just the games, but the kind of story we present in the museum and the artwork and the music and the videos and stuff like that. Fans like to hear about the backstory of these products, and I think that goes a long way to help encourage people to buy stuff, right? I mean, I did Street Fighter collection last year, and it hit 1 million. It sold over 1 million, and part of that, of course, is obviously the popularity of Street Fighter. But I think we packed a lot of games in there. I think we packed a lot of cool features, the sprite viewer and the timeline and stuff like that. So it's like if you're a remote Street Fighter fan, it makes absolute sense for you to buy it just to learn more about Street Fighter and stuff. And I think Darkstalkers is the same way. No, it wouldn't achieve the same success as Street Fighter, but there's a lot of background material and stories about Darkstalkers that I think a lot of fans would love to hear about. A Final Fight? Yeah, actually, I'd personally love to work on a Final Fight. We have a lot of ideas about a Final Fight game, but it seems like now Capcom has taken a lot of their stuff internal now. Japan seems to be managing a lot of that stuff. So I don't know what their thoughts are about Final Fight. I mean, they did release that recent collection, right? So maybe that is a appetizer for a potential new Final Fight at some time. I don't know. The collection really focused. I mean, the goal of the collection, though it morphed a little bit, but the main focus of the collection was the CPS 1, 2, and 3 arcade games. That was the focus of it. So no home ports, no other platforms or anything like that. It was a celebration of the CPS 1, 2, and 3 versions of Street Fighter, and to celebrate sort of the rich arcade history of those games. So that's why you don't see anything like 3 Upper or any of the other home versions that had other characters and things like that. That wasn't the focus of the collection. It was a celebration of the Street Fighter, the core Street Fighter arcade games. And I mean, man, it's got 12 games in there, right? Like, would I love to do a volume 2 of that? Sure. Maybe for the 40th anniversary, we can do something else. if I'm still around. Yeah, we always try to pack our collections with content. I mean, we don't control necessarily the games that are in the collection, though sometimes, we can suggest stuff, and sometimes we can get them to agree to add stuff and things like that. But, we try to pack that stuff as much as we can. Like within the walls of limitations that we have for these collections, we try to cram as much stuff in there as we can. All right, I'm probably gonna wrap up this another 5 or 10 minutes, just because I gotta do some stuff, and I want to try to play a little bit more Shenmue 3 before I go to bed. But we still got 5 or 10 more minutes. Yeah, I think the good thing about the Digital Eclipse stuff is that we try to always add something new, like, Mega Man Legacy Collection, which was the sort of the first return of Digital Eclipse. We added in sort of the challenges, right? And then we had the Disney Afternoon Collection, which had the thing where you could record your playthroughs and you could upload them so people could watch them, and you could battle. You could actually race against the best speed runs. So that was kind of cool. And then Street Fighter, we had like the sprite viewer, we had a timeline and a bunch of other stuff in there. And then SNK 40th, we added watch videos. So you could watch any game in that collection, and at any time you can decide to jump in and play from that point on. And then Disney Classic Games, we actually went back and took the original Aladdin and improved it and then included that in the collection. So we're always, I think that's what's kind of cool, is that we have the opportunities to be able to add new exciting things. Like we get to think about what makes sense for the collection and try to add something new and exciting. Did I find the Saturn Shenmue 3? No, I've literally only played 2 hours of Shenmue 3. And that was streaming. So my focus on the game wasn't completely there. So I might actually end up restarting over and like focusing more on it. But it's Shenmue. I mean, it's weird. It's like they managed to capture Shenmue pretty much exactly, almost. Yeah, the Digital Eclipse brand, though there was a mix of different people and stuff like that. We released a ton of stuff, arcade ports, or arcade emulation on the Xbox and PlayStation for sure. A lot of people like them, which is great. I wasn't involved on that. But we've always tried to, the Digital Eclipse brand has always tried to make sure that the products that we release are, high quality. So. But as far as Shenmue 3, yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy the Shenmue franchise, and I know it's not for everybody. And there's no doubt that if you did not like Shenmue 1 and or 2, Shenmue 3 is not going to change that. It's not. It's literally for people who played Shenmue 1 and 2 and enjoyed it and now want to continue the story. Yeah, it's a game of its time. Like you can't, the structure of the game is grown from its original conception on the Dreamcast and hasn't evolved a super amount. And it's, for modern audiences, it's too, I don't know, it's too removed. So, anywho. Yeah, Saturn, right? That's crazy. I'm so thankful it didn't continue on the Saturn, because while I love that system, the limitations on that platform would have caused it to be like a mere shadow of what it came out to be on the Dreamcast. So, and I think there would have been just one game, and that would have been it. It would have been done, nothing more. But despite the craziness, it made its windy path, and now we have crazy after all this time. The first Shenmue was like 1999, I think, and the second one was 2001, and available on the Xbox. It's kind of interesting that it's taken all that time, but it is amazing, like how many franchises get an opportunity to continue the storyline that much later, right? It's kind of freaky. But yeah, I look forward to playing it. I don't know how long the game is. I haven't really looked at any reviews or spoilers or anything like that, so I actually don't know how long the game is overall as far as critical path. I mean, I can't imagine it's going to be super long, but I am impressed with the amount of area, the first section, I mean, the town that you're in, it's quite large. And I don't know if you end up going to other towns or another area yet, but that area is relatively large in itself. Combat is weird. Um, it is a weird direction to take. Like, for example, when you learn the Akira Yuki kind of shoulder charge, it's like a 3-button combination. It's really weird. Like, it's not like a direction with a button or double tap with a button. It's like 3 buttons in succession. And that really confused me. And so how you perform the new moves is a little bit weird. So I haven't done much fighting. I've only done 2 fighting sequences, and I've done some training with the horse stance and the 1-inch punch, but I haven't really done much combat yet. So I'm very curious to see how the combat is and how it evolves. I know it's different, but we'll see. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know Yu Suzuki has said that he'd like to do a 4th game. So I hope this one sells decently enough to warrant a 4th one. I mean, especially if he wants to end it with 4. But I don't know. I don't know if there's an audience. You know, you've got some big games out for the holiday that compete against it. So I don't know. No, I agree. I mean, people should count their blessings that they got a 3rd game out of this. I mean, that's why it's so surreal. Like I said, like how many franchises get an opportunity to have a sequel so long after the originals came out? Well, 20 of them. I mean, who says that? No one's going to want to make 20 of a game. I don't care what he says. Like, that's insane. Like, you know, be happy when any game is done. I always feel lucky, and while game development is hard work, you know, when you release a game, you know, it's always something special, and you always feel thankful to be able to have a job that allows you to put ideas into a box and then throw it out into the world and hope that people enjoy it. And yes, it's difficult because sometimes you get a lot of vocal minority who are very negative about stuff, but you just have to learn to filter that out and see what the real stuff that boils up is. And I mean, I think it's no better feeling than being able to release something that puts a smile on someone's face, regardless, you know? So that's what we all try to do. And it's not easy, but that's our day-to-day goal is, you know, release something that puts a smile on people's faces and helps them escape from the world, you know, even for a little bit of time. I don't think Yu's losing his mind, but you know, he's getting older and he's been in this industry for a very long time. But you can't argue with his past successes, like all of his arcade hits that he was involved with, the early days. I mean, he helped achieve, you know, a lot of success for Sega. So I don't fault him for that at all. And the fact that he's, you know, relatively older and he's still going and still making games that garner a lot of interest. I mean, I don't know if you can ask for more than that. I mean, to have a long lasting career where at the tail end people still care. Yeah, I think the difference, the Nintendo difference is, and there's no doubt that Nintendo has a lot of talent, and Miyamoto has a lot of talent, and he's able to teach people what makes games great and stuff. But I think what separates Nintendo from a lot of the other companies is their willingness to do the last 10%. So I always say that, like, you know, most games get released 90% done. The last 10% is the hardest and it's the polished, but it's what makes games really feel magical and special. And Nintendo is one of those few companies that is willing to invest the money and time to get the last 10%. And most companies do not do that. They're perfectly happy with the 90%. It's totally good game. It's a solid game. it's good enough to go out. And I think that's generally what it is. But Nintendo, though, they've kind of dropped the ball a little bit recently. I mean, they can't always be perfect, but it's as simple as that. They're willing to spend the time and money to make sure that that extra 10% is done. And most often, people don't have time or an opportunity to do that extra 10%. And it's a simple thing to say. It's hard in execution, but really Nintendo does that, and most people do not. Well, I mean, Shenmue, because of the Kickstarter, isn't much of a risk, right? That made between $6 and $7 million in Kickstarter money, and Deep Silver came in, and I'm sure Deep Silver put up money for the physical manufacture of discs and everything. So, I don't think it's going to lose money at all. I mean, I think it'll make some money. I don't think it's going to make a lot of money, but I'm just happy that there's a third one. Ghost in the Shell. Yes. That's Ghost in the Shell. And there's another Ghost in the Shell over there. There's another Ghost in the Shell over there. I mix up these posters a lot as far as like replacing them with different things, but it just so happens that there's a lot of Ghost in the Shell. There's a couple of Virtua Fighter. I have a lot of stuff from Sega, like concept art from when we did the Marvel games. And then I have autographed Star Trek pictures of different actors and actresses from Star Trek who sign photos of them. Then I have some bunch of Joker stuff. It's not cheap, but nowadays with outsourcing to China, to Malaysia, not to Malaysia, for the Philippines, there is a lot of talented outsourcing groups that handle art that are not that expensive. And the biggest aspect of Shenmue, for the most part, is artwork, the most cost-heavy thing. And so I think you can, $6, $7, $8, $9 million, you could do a lot. Trust me. I mean, here at our studio, we do a lot for the money ratio. I mean, it's crazy what we accomplish with the amount of money. So I think you could do. Granted, I don't know the scope of Shenmue 3 yet. I have not finished it, and I don't know how many areas there are. But its biggest thing, the complexity of the game is mostly in the talking, conversation, and combat system and stuff. But it's mostly art. It's a lot of art, and art is one thing that you can sort of do at a more fair price these days. A book series instead? That's interesting. But I mean, it was his vision, right? Like, I applaud anyone in this industry who has the ability to act on their dream. And obviously, this was sort of a dream project of his, and he wanted to do it. So, kudos to him for being able to be in a position where he can do that, right? I mean, just like Hideo Kojima and Metal Gear, Peter Molyneux and his project. I mean, what good is your success if you can't try to take it and make something that you want out of it? I mean, you could say that for Peter Jackson too, right? Peter Jackson, movie director who did Lord of the Rings, which are phenomenal movies. And after that, what he wanted to do was King Kong. And he loved King Kong, and he wanted to do an adaptation of King Kong. And compared to Lord of the Rings, King Kong did not do very well. It's, most people don't care about King Kong, but that was a pet project of him. And he knew that that was his only chance to be able to do that based off of the success of Lord of the Rings. And so he took it. And it's the same thing with a lot of these other games, these opportunities. Like if you have the success and you have the ability to try to deliver on your dream, why not, right? Because you don't get many chances. You don't get many chances for that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how Shenmue 3 wraps up or if we'll have a Shenmue 4, but I think it would be cool if we had a Shenmue 4. It wrapped everything up and then that's it. I mean, 4 games in a series is solid. And I think he can be proud and happy of that. He could fix all the issues that he saw in Shenmue 3, improve upon it for Shenmue 4, and then, call it a day. Yeah, 4 is plenty. That's more than enough. Well, I mean, there's always more stories to tell, but I think he can wrap it up to a nice, satisfying conclusion if he has these 4 games to do it. I mean, it's a solid adventure, right? All right, guys, I am going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining me and chatting with me for a bit. It was fun. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'll try to see if I can do this more. It seems pretty cool. Maybe I'll try to do it on a more consistent basis. But definitely thanks for swinging by, chatting with me, and I hope you guys have a great weekend and Thanksgiving coming up. Hopefully you have a nice vacation or can spend time with family and stuff. And I will catch you guys later. Have a great rest of the weekend. Okay. Bye.